Okay, we're live. Okay, everybody, how you doing? Welcome to Fight to Repair subscribers. I'm Paul Roberts. I'm the editor at Fight to Repair, and I'm here with my good friend Kevin O'Reilly from the Fulu Foundation, who is with us today to talk about a really cool tour that's happening this summer. No, it's not Noah Kahan. It is the Own Your Shit um, tour that Fulu is hosting. It's visiting a number of cities here in the United States, east, west, central, mountain. And we're talking about ownership. We're talking about your right to own the stuff that you buy. Kevin, welcome.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, we're no Noah Kahan, but I think our merch might outdo him. So
We'll
we'll have to
see.
share some of that later on.
We'll see.
Yeah.
The merch is definitely cool. Um, so right now you are in Boulder, Colorado, and tonight at 6 p.m. Mountain Time is the first of this event of this national tour that you're doing. Own Your Shit. So first of all, before we dive into the tour and what it's all about, for folks who don't know about Fulu Foundation, Kevin, just tell them a little bit about Fulu and what the organization is and what its mission is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, I'm Kevin O'Reilly. I'm the executive director at Fulu Foundation. Fulu is a pretty new org. We were started last spring by YouTuber and right repair advocate Louis Rossman. Um, and we very much are founded out of the right repair movement, right? And this idea that if you own something, you should be able to fix it when it breaks. We totally believe in that, but we also believe that ownership should mean a lot more, right? Should mean being able to hold on to the features that you bought and paid for and not have them put behind a paywall. It should mean being able to customize and modify your tech to make it work for you rather than the other way around. It should mean, keeping your devices running or your video games live, regardless of what the manufacturer or the game developer has to say. So our work is all kind of focused on that of restoring ownership in the age. And, you know, just looking at, there are some old laws on the books that I know that we'll talk about that just don't make sense anymore, with how much tech has become a part of our lives. So it's time that we brought that stuff into modern times.
Yeah. There are also a lot of old laws on the books that make a lot of sense, but that we don't seem to want to enforce, like the antitrust laws. But
Yeah.
we'll talk
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. We'll talk about
So you and I met each other in the work that both of us did in the right and are doing in the right to repair movement. You've got a really long history of advocacy, starting with Right to Repair and the PER organization, Public Interest Research Group. Just tell us a little bit about your path to that and your background.
Yeah, well, I remember being a fresh-faced young advocate and meeting you for the first time. We went in for a lobby meeting at the State House in Beacon Hill in Massachusetts, and the staffer was like, "Wow, Mr. Roberts, you are very impressive. You have a very impressive resume. You have done very impressive things. You were Mr. Impressive," which was I loved. I was like, "All right, this guy knows what he's talking about." But um, anyway, so yeah, so I have been working on. He does. That's why your followers are following. Um,
Okay.
so I've been working on right to repair for the better part of the last decade. Right, I actually was an engineer by training. Worked for a bit in industry. Worked for a bit actually as an industrial engineer and civilian employee for the Navy. Um, but came to right to repair as I was looking to get more involved in politics. And to me, right to repair, right, just hits on so many of the issues that are so important right now, right? It's the fact that, again, our tech isn't working for us. If anything, we're working for our tech. We're not able to control things that, we're getting squeezed from every angle, that we've got all this waste that's being produced, that, and then also in this partisan environment, the fact that uh, this is an issue that reaches across, red, blue, purple. Uh, People just want the right to fix their stuff. So, um, as you mentioned, Paul, I worked at the Public Interest Research Group, who obviously has been a long time leader in the right to repair movement. Um, I did a mixture of organizing and research and lobbying and advocacy. A couple areas where I would focus. One was in agriculture. So I did research that kind of was some of the first to methodically look at the way that John Deere locks farmers out of fixing their tractors, right? There it is. Um, available in the Fight to Repair store. Anyways, so, right, looking at that, working with farmers, understanding their issues, right? We also looked at one thing we heard a lot from farmers was the level of consolidation that was happening in dealerships. So
Hmm.
they were stuck in a situation where, in order to find a competing dealership, right, they had this monopoly within a monopoly of I have to cross state lines if I want to find a competitive dealership if I'm not, getting the right service or the right price that I need. And then also looked into the overall fiscal impact of what repair restrictions cost farmers. What we modeled out, what I was able to calculate was $4.2 billion a year, which, with this class action multi-district litigation suit that's being settled with Deere, when they were offering 99 million for the past 6 or 7 years, that is not even close to enough. So hopefully, the judge will figure that out and get farmers what they're actually due. But
Yep. 79 cents an acre, as you said.
79 cents an acre. Yeah,
Yeah.
just unbelievable. So
Yeah.
did a lot of work with that, did some work with biomedical repair technicians and kind of in the wake of um, COVID and the fact that they couldn't
COVID.
fix ventilators, right? That they had broken ones that were just collecting dust, that they had the will and the know how to fix, but they didn't have the access codes. They didn't have the materials they needed. So, did a lot of work with that.
And the manufacturers had, their own authorized, service and repair, but were completely understaffed in the context of a pandemic, right? They just didn't have the people to send out to service all of these devices, right? And all the hospitals were like, well,
100%.
we can just give us the information we need. We'll get it going ourselves. No, you can't.
Yeah.
It's just like,
That's absolutely right, right? And the other thing was like, who wants people going from COVID hotspot to COVID hotspot, right? It's like if you've got people, just let them fix it. It was
Yeah.
a really, frustrating. We got pretty close to passing legislation in California in 2021, but came up short, unfortunately. And that's something with that we still need to make some progress for as, the right to repair community.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. So we both, kind of got into this with the right to repair, but as we were talking about, even with a right to repair, even if we get a strong federal right to repair, there are bigger questions and issues, as you have said, around this concept of supporting the rights of ownership. And I think that's really kind of why FULU was founded. Talk just a little bit about kind of what shape those challenges take. Like how exactly is ownership kind of being degraded right now out there in the
Absolutely.
tech world?
Yeah, I mean, right. I think everybody feels this. Depending on how much you know about tech, everybody on some level is feeling squeezed, right? It used to be that when you bought something, you owned it and you could do what you want with it, right? It was hardware. If it needed to be fixed, all you needed to do was pick up and turn a wrench, right? If you wanted to make something else work, use it for a different purpose than what the manufacturer, intended it for. As long as you were following the law, nobody could stop you from doing that. Um, so so we're trying to get back to that point, right? Where ownership means control. It means privacy. It means self repair. It means this is my thing. Now you who sold it to me, hands off. Because that's the way that it's been not
Right.
only for decades or it's been that way for centuries. It's been that way for millennia, right? It's like this is just kind of how ownership works. So one of the big barriers to this is a 28-year-old copyright law called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, Section 1201 in particular, right? This bill that was presented as a fix to or a way to prevent piracy from CDs and DVDs. Um, I would argue that at formulation, it was maybe not the best design. And actually, if you go and look at some of Lewis's videos, right, the architect, Bruce Lehman himself, who worked in the Clinton administration back in 2007, said like, oh, we didn't do a very good job with this. But nonetheless, we have this copyright law that makes it illegal to bypass digital locks for pretty much any purpose. It's a copyright crime. If you make tools available for other people to get past these locks, whether that's for repair or for modification or whatever it might be, you could go to prison for 5 years and get a fine of up to $500,000 for the first time. The second time you distribute it to someone, it's 10 years and $100,000 and $1 million. So these are crazy, crazy fines to simply take back control of the stuff that we bought and paid for. So that's our work, right? Is looking at, finding ways to advance right to repair, but advance broader ownership by bringing Section 1201 of the DMCA into modern times.
Right. And I mean, it's funny, when I testified in Congress back in 2023 on is there a right to repair, this came up, um, and uh, there were folks on the subcommittee I testified to who had been in Congress back in the 90s when the DMCA was passed, and it was pretty clear from what they said that they kind of understood back then that without things like fair use exemptions and so on that would cover things like repair, that what was waiting down the road was exactly what we're experiencing today, but they couldn't get it done, and now we're dealing with the consequences. Yeah, 25 years ago, it wasn't as big of a problem. Software wasn't running on everything that we owned. Today it is. And we're experiencing this to such a degree. Okay.
There was a quote,
Yeah,
if I can just jump in, that I remember
yeah,
Representative Darrell Issa asked a
yeah,
question. He was like, where in the Constitution or God's green earth does it say we can't fix our own stuff, right? Where does it say this? Like, it doesn't make any
right.
sense. No, it's just this 28-year-old copyright law that's standing in the way, and that's just bonkers.
It's exactly, and a really clear path to improving that and making it less, fair use exemptions and for repair and maintenance and security patching and things like that. And yet, as you know, we've been trying to do it for years. So let's talk about this. One of the ways to maybe change that is to go out and meet people face to face and talk to them about it, and that's kind of the own your shit tour. So talk to us about the tour and kind of how this came about and what the goal is, what the objective of the Own Your Shit tour is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the idea for this came from um, the fact that we're kind of Fulu operates really in two spaces, right? We've got Lewis's YouTube channel where he's sharing a lot of examples of the crazy anti-ownership practices that are happening, right? We can look just to LG with their monitors. If you've seen this story where simply plugging in, I think it's LG, an LG
Yep.
monitor, your Windows 11 laptop, it will lead to McAfee security pop-ups.
Yep.
They will install LG apps onto your computer. It's like, we're going in the wrong direction. We handled the pop-up problem a long time ago, and this is what innovation is now. So, anyways, I digress. So we should be able to own our stuff. We should be able to control our stuff. And so we've had, right, Lewis talks about all these examples of how ownership is eroding, right? We've got people his followers, other folks who see his videos who are so frustrated, right? We're pissed off. We're in the comments saying like, this is bullshit. And it is bullshit,
Yep.
right? At the
Yep.
same time, right, I, head to Capitol Hill quite a bit to hold lobby meetings and talk to members of Congress about this policy, right? And while people do understand it, and there's some folks who do understand it, there's a lot who don't, right? So what we're trying to do is bridge that gap, right? And the way that we bridge that gap is we take the online anger and frustration and turn that into real life advocacy. So over the course of the next 8 weeks, right, we're going to be hitting 13 different cities and towns across the country. We're in Boulder this week. Next week, we'll be in Vancouver and Spokane, Washington. We're headed to Johnson City, Tennessee, and Atlanta, Georgia. We're going to Myrtle Beach, Raleigh, Roanoke, Tampa, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and then finishing off in LA and San Jose. So we're trying to cover as much ground as we can over the next 8 weeks. And I think this is an awesome opportunity to bring people together who are frustrated, really draw attention to some of the local champs and the local kind of heroes of whether it's repair or ownership more broadly, who are kind of leading the activism and the fight either at the local or state level. And also, generate some advocacy product. We're having folks write postcards to their members of Congress and I tell them that it's time to update the DMCA. It's time to pass the Freedom to Fix Act, which would make repair essentially no longer a copyright crime. So that's where we started and that's where we came from. And so it's going to be a busy few weeks, but I'm really excited. We're kicking things off in Boulder tonight. We've got wait list only, over, I think we should have 100 plus people coming out. So
Wow.
it's going to be great.
I mean, it's interesting. Boulder and Colorado have really been at the forefront in the in the right to repair movement. They passed some of the most kind of toothy, strongest right to repair laws, including the country's only right to repair agricultural equipment. Um, so not that surprised that there's big turnout. What are you going to talk about when you're there? What's the idea? Anything
Absolutely.
Colorado
So,
specific, or just kind of talk more generally?
well, so I think, yeah, we have a killer kind of group of local leaders that are going to be speaking on our panel. So we've got Rep. Brianna Titone, who's been the champion of each of these bills that have passed. Right, Colorado's got, like you said, some of the strongest, but also the broadest right to repair laws on the country. Things for powered wheelchair, agricultural equipment, consumer electronics, household appliances. Enterprise equipment like servers and routers. Right, they've got this really broad set. So I'm really excited to have her to speak about kind of everything that she did. We're going to have Billy Rios, right, who I am sure is a friend of the newsletter here,
Yep.
to
Billy's
share, some of his expertise. He, was critical in fighting back against an industry-backed effort to roll back some of these protections earlier
Yep.
this year. So he's going to talk a little bit about that. And then we've also got Wayne Seltzer, who is the founder of the Boulder You Fix It Clinic, which is, community repair is such an important part of the right to repair. And I think broader ownership movement, right? Of like, first of all, when you fix something, I think it helps to develop a different kind of relationship with your product. But more broadly, right, these local fixers were some of the critical grassroots voices who helped to both pass and protect these laws. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. And then, of course, we'll have our founder, Louis Rossman. We actually had our first event in Austin last month. And, he's going to be mixing it up and doing a different
Which is
presentation.
where Louis is based in Austin.
Exactly. Yep. Louis and Fulu are based in Austin. And right, it's like watching him do a video in real life. It's awesome. It's an awesome experience. It's so fun. He's so funny. He's so quick, and like, you almost get to see the magic happen in real life. So that's a really fun part of that.
And Louis has been such an important figure in the right to repair movement. Just really, I don't know if there's anyone who's done more to increase just public awareness of right to repair and all the stuff that companies are doing to try and restrict rights of ownership. So you did an event in Austin. What do you hear from people at these events? I mean, and we'll talk in a second about some of the work Fulu's doing some of the bounties you've offered around this kind of practical efforts to solve these problems. But do people kind of come with like, oh yeah, I had this thing die on me, or is it, are they just more kind of, interested in it at a higher level?
Yeah. Well, first of all, speaking of bounties, Cody Kosiemba is one of our bounty winners. So, hey, Cody. So as far as it goes with like what I'm hearing, right? Like everybody has a story, whether it's they took their truck in to replace the headlight, right? The bulb went out. This should be an easy repair. I remember the first time when I was like 16 years old and my parents sent me down to the local auto shop to go fix this. And like I, asked somebody and like, what do I need? And they're like, okay, that's the light right there. And then I'm like, what do I do? They're like, go open it up and figure it out. Right. Like it was a $40, $30 repair. And I had to figure it out myself. That wasn't a problem. This guy I was talking to about his headlamp on his pickup truck. It cost him, I think it was $750, right? Because first of all, you can't just buy a replacement bulb. You've got to buy the entire assembly now. And second of all, it's got to be software paired, right? You have to install the printer driver essentially for your headlight to talk to the computer on your truck. So we've taken this thing, right? And it just made it so much more complicated and expensive and just ridiculous than it needs to be. So you hear things like that. You hear people who are, members of the open source software kind of community who think that, software has been kind of bastardized, right? And it's like there was all of this promise, right? The internet was supposed to be a democratizing force, but instead we're being kind of forced into these walled gardens that we have to operate in. So you get a lot of different folks. We had, old people, young people. It's really pretty cool to see the kind of broad swath of folks that come out to these events. Um, because whether you're a farmer, whether you're a techie, whether you fix medical equipment, these are issues that affect all of us.
Right. Right. I'm going to take a question from Cody, who's joined us here. Cody asked, "DMCA is a federal law. Can you talk a little bit more about the state laws that may or may not be in place? Is fighting locally the first step to overruling the archaic federal law that exists?" It's a great question, as you and I can both attest. Much more realistic to try and get things done at the state level. So, is that kind of part of the idea with Fulu? Is raise awareness in different states, maybe get things going at a state level?
So when it comes to the DMCA, Cody is exactly right, right? This is a federal law, and because it deals with copyright, that is federal jurisdiction, right? States cannot do anything to adjust kind of copyright law. So part of our goal with the Freedom to Fix Act, which would, as I mentioned, right, grant exemptions for the purposes of repair, maintenance, and cybersecurity security research to the 1201 ban on circumventing locks, right?
Mm-hmm.
There has been a ton of progress on right to repair, right? What do we have? 10 states now with laws. We've got a third of the US population covered by some sort of right to repair protection, right? To us, that feels like, okay, this is the opportunity for that to bubble up into some federal change. But there are also other elements, right, of our ownership that are being undermined. So some of the things that Fulu has engaged on, and I know that, Paul, your organization, SURF, is working on, right? There are things about end of life products, making it so that there it is. Making it so that manufacturers have to at least let consumers know how long they're planning to support a software connected product and let them know when it's about to die, right? That is the first step. There's much more that'll need to happen to make sure you can keep it running regardless of the manufacturer. But that's one example, right? There's the Stop Killing Games Act that was in California that was looking at, right, this huge problem of if you're playing an online game that you've purchased, right, not rented, and it's not a subscription. If you purchased a game and the game developer decides to switch off the servers, right, that thing that you bought doesn't exist anymore. So people want to be able to run their own independent servers. That's against the law. That's crazy. People should be able to do that. And then I think there are all these other sorts of things of EULA supremacy, right? The fact that manufacturers can put together an end user license agreement or a terms of service and, require you to sign over, your firstborn and all of your ownership rights. And then,
literally, right? I mean, they could put that in and you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, great.
Because who reads that, right? Like, I'm not reading that. Come on, I'm not reading a 25-page legalese, right? And even if I did, I don't have the legal training to understand it. I'm a decently smart guy, but I don't know what's going on there. I think one example of that, right, is like we were looking recently, PlayStation has taken a bunch of, and Sony have taken a bunch of anti-ownership moves lately, right? One being that if you owned a Studio Canal movie, right, so a movie produced by the production studio Studio Canal, which includes like Terminator 2, it includes Inside Llewyn Davis, which is like that's a Coen Brothers film that I love. Bridget Jones' Diary, I know that's one of your favorites, Paul. Right, if you had that movie that you purchased through the PlayStation Store, they told you that come September 1st, they're going to be removing it from your library. You bought this digital movie, and they're able to take it away. So they turn it into a long-term rental. When you look at PlayStation's terms of service, it's insane. They have a definition essentially of ownership, and it says the use of terms like own, ownership, buy, sell do not imply any transfer of ownership of intellectual property or content. It's like ownership does not mean ownership in our little box, right? Which is, again, nuts. So there are things that can be done at the state level, and it's exciting to see. I think there are a lot of right to repair champions and others who are looking for the next step, and we need to continue to work with them to do that. But at the same time, we do need federal change because digital locks are everywhere, and it just gives manufacturers and content providers this huge, broad legal protection to infringe on our rights.
And this goes back, I mean, I remember back, I don't know, 2009 or 2010, Amazon deleted, ironically, copies of 1984 from Kindles that people had purchased, and it was on their Kindle. They're like, "Well, I own this, version of my," and it's like, "Actually, you don't. You didn't.
And
You
that's the
don't
thing,
own
right? If
Amazon."
you
Yeah,
tried to back up,
yeah,
if you tried to back up that file, right? If you wanted to take that Amazon file and put it into an EPUB or something and save it on your computer on your hard drive, so Amazon can't do that,
yeah.
you're violating Section 1201 of the DMCA. You are a copyright criminal for, you know, either wanting to back up your book, or say you buy a digital movie and you're about to be on a plane and you don't want to pay for Wi-Fi, so you want to put it on your iPad. You're a copyright criminal. Don't do that. Get out of here. That's wrong.
So one of the amazing things Hulu has been doing is offering bounties for technical folks and sometimes even non-technical folks who figure out a way to, liberate these devices from these, really limiting, constraining digital locks and so on. Actually, Kindle is one of the devices that you have put up there because is that I'm right, right? Um,
I don't think we have a Kindle one. I have to
we
look that
do.
up. But
Hold on.
I think we looked at it and we didn't end up doing it because we were looking around and there's already some jailbreaks available, like a
Oh, that's right. Okay, you did an award, but you're
YouTube.
right. It wasn't. There was no
Yeah.
bounty on it, but you did do an award because there were already some like YouTube videos and stuff where people were breaking it.
Mhm.
But Ring doorbell, Nest thermostat, like you said, PlayStation, really amazing. What's been the response to that? And as you look at it now, kind of what well, first of all, I'm pretty impressed with how many donations you get just to fund the bounties, which is great. What, as you see it, are some of the obstacles that are existing to us just kind of liberating everything that we need to?
Yeah. So just to like the reason, right? Lewis came up with this idea of the bounty system because we were seeing these anti-ownership practices and we wanted to do something about it. We wanted to organize the coder, hacker, developer community to be working on things that were going to restore ownership and give consumers more rights. At the same time that, right, when you talk about Section 1201 and the DMCA, it's all very like, I don't know, it's your eyes start to glaze over, and I don't blame you for it. So we wanted to show real
Hashtag
tangible
not a
examples.
lawyer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We wanted to show real tangible examples of what would happen if we had reform, right? So we wanted to kind of build up a bank of these are the products, these are the services, these are the things that we could do with our tech if we got rid of this crazy law, or at least made it make sense. So what we do is we'll find a product that has an anti-repair, anti-ownership product practice. We'll put out a initial bounty of $10,000, and then match up to $10,000 more in community donations for whoever can kind of crack the firmware, liberate these devices, and achieve a stated goal. So, Cody, I wish we could pull him in right now to share, but he was the winner of our Nest thermostat bounty. And what we did was, right, that was back
I might be
last
Hold on one second.
fall. Yeah, let's see if we can pull him in. That'll be fun. Cody, not to put you on the spot or anything, but so the origin of this, right, was Google bought Nest long ago, right? And Google makes a decision that they don't want to provide security support for the original, two models of the Nest thermostat. So they send out an email, say starting October 25th, 2025, you will no longer have support. You will no longer have access to any of the smart features of your smart thermostat. You won't be able to control it remotely. You won't be able to kind of use the data for automation purposes. All of that goes out the window. Your smart thermostat is now a dumb thermostat, and that's too bad. Deal with it. So, hey, Cody, I'll hand it to you here in just a second. So we wanted to restore that, right? And we wanted to make it so that, right, like when I think of thermostats, the house I grew up in had a thermostat that must have been manufactured in 1942. Like this thing was old, and thermostats always last forever, right? So the idea that this is now 10 or 15 years as the shelf life of the thermostat is ridiculous.
Crazy.
So,
right.
Cody was one of the ones who actually won. We ended up paying out, I think it was like a little over $14,000, but Cody, tell us about like what you developed and then what you found in the process.
You there?
Cody, you there?
He's here. His camera's
I don't know
off.
if you're muted.
Yeah. Oh, no. Sorry, just a
Just a
moment.
I'll
Yep,
keep.
yep.
I'll keep. I can vamp. I can vamp for a minute. So,
No, I mean it's and we saw that with the Nest, right? Which is, okay, so the Nest still works as a thermostat mechanically, right? And yet, and this is so often the fact, a big chunk of the features that you bought it for, including most, being able to control it remotely via your mobile app, and just using some of those, many of those smart features, those have all disappeared.
mhm.
Although, as was reported, the thing is continuing to talk to Amazon's cloud and send it data from your own environment. So, and that is just so often the case, which is, you're purchasing products, whether a home appliance or what have you, you know, 80% of the reason you're purchasing it might be software powered features that could literally disappear the day after you get the thing installed and working, with no notice, with no accountability. And, and sometimes that, like you said, with some products, shutting down those cloud servers, or ending those software features could actually brick the device and then end its usefulness. Kind of bring it to
Right. Like I think of my aunt who had one because she's got a little cabin up in the mountains, and she uses it if there's a big cold front coming through or a big storm. She
Yeah,
uses it to change the temperature so her pipes don't burst, so she doesn't have this huge,
yeah,
expensive nightmare to deal with.
that's right.
Right there. Or I talked to somebody who lives in Austin, right, and he has two elderly dogs. He likes to be able to make sure that they are not going to get heat stroke if it gets up to 100, 105 outside. So, these are it's a small thing, but it's still important. It's funny. I was talking the other day to Danny Wood, who's a Colorado farmer who was one of the lead advocates for the ag right to repair bill that passed here in Colorado. And he was talking about, he's like, I bought that piece of iron when he was talking about his tractor, but I don't just own the iron. I should own whatever it takes to make the iron work, right?
Right.
We don't own the software right now. Talking about EULAs, right? Like we license the software, and that just simply isn't good enough. So we've got to do something about it. So I don't know if Cody's going to be able to join us, but as you mentioned, right, one thing that he found, first of all, he made it so that you can, again, control your thermostat remotely. One of the two kind of bans in Section 12.1 of the DMCA is that, yes, you can't circumvent locks, but then you can't make public or sell the means of circumvention, essentially. So if you try to make a tool to help others do it, you
Right.
run risk of, being a copyright criminal. Cody made the decision. He was like, I'm just going to put it out there. I don't think Google's going to sue me. So if you go to nolongerevil.com, you can check it out. You can download your software. You can make it work again.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome. Our latest one that I just want to share that's we're really excited about is PlayStation 5. Right. We are trying to get Linux on the latest model, the latest firmware of the PlayStation 5 for a couple reasons, right? Yes, we're seeing kind of these anti-ownership steps from Sony, from PlayStation, but also that's a powerful computer. And at a moment when, the memory chip crunch is leading to higher prices for consumers, right?
And RAM is super expensive, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And a PS5, right, has similar RAM specs to the $799 Mac Mini. So if you want to use AI coding tools or set up, agents and have them run, like you could be using this. You own that hardware, but you're not able to do so because of the software. So we've seen a huge influx of support. Damn it, Jeff is a YouTuber. He helped us announce it, which was really exciting. We've seen like over 400 people donate. We're up to like 34 grand for that bounty. So if you know PS5 stuff, check it out. Get to work. We would love to award it out to you.
Okay, so final question. So the next tour, the next visit is it Vancouver, Washington? Is that the next one?
And Vancouver, Washington.
Yep. And if people want to attend one of these events, what do they need to do?
So go to fulu.org/events. That is where we have information on each of the stops. Vancouver's sold out, so if you can't make it to that one, join us in Spokane instead. But you can RSVP. You can, these are free events. You can donate if you want, but just come. We'd rather you just come. Check it out, spread the word. Let us know if you want to volunteer. We could use your help. And I hope to see you out there.
And if folks are like, "Hey, my city's not on your list, but I'd love for you to come here," can they reach out to you and pitch that?
Let us know. I don't, I don't know that we'll be making a bunch of additional stops on this tour, but depending on how
Boston.
this goes,
Sorry.
based on the interest, yeah, exactly. Uh, we might be doing another one. So if you're willing to hop, it's been pretty exciting and fun to see people game for a road trip to join us in one of those spots. But otherwise, yeah, reach out to me. Let me know. My email is kevin@fulu.org. Let me know where you want us to come, and we'll see what we can do about it.
And each city will have, I mean, so you got, not, of course, you get to meet Louis Rossman face to face, which is amazing. And Kevin, you're going to have Wayne and Billy. Each city will have different set of local repair ownership celebrities, right?
Yeah, so we've got Stacy Higginbotham of Consumer Reports, who's an IoT wizard, as well as Helen
Vancouver.
Lee from Crowd Supply in Vancouver. We've got some local repair shops that are going to be speaking in Spokane, and then we'll continue. The list will go on.
Right.
So should be a great opportunity to meet folks in your area that are doing the good work on this subject.
It's a great thing, man. Thank you so much for doing it. I think it's super important. I think it's a great way, as you know, talking to people face to face and getting them talking to each other. Huge benefits that follow from that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this yields. And Kevin, thank you, and thanks to Fulu for the work that you all do.
Hey, right back at you, Paul. Thanks so much.
Well,
Good to talk to you.
Thank you. We'll do this again for sure.
Sounds great.
All right. Ciao.
See ya.